You're listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast, discussing all aspects of precision and long-range rifle shooting. This episode is brought to you by Impact Dynamics, advanced training for the precision shooter. And now, over to your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Precision Shooting Podcast. My name is Rusty and this episode is number 56. This is actually a continuation from the last episode as we wrap up the first Precision Rifle Series Australia event held in Mildura at the beginning of June, the Vortex Cold Steel Open. The guys that you'll hear, apart from myself, in the room with me is Nik Halliwell from Ignition Custom Engineering. Also on the line is Greg Small from the Precision Rifle Series Australia, as well as two of the production competitors, Sean McNally and then Andrew Stevens, who actually took out their division completely. This episode is, as you heard before, brought to you by Impact Dynamics, but specifically the PRS Match Ready course that is being released and run for the first time later this year. It's a 3-day course that touches on elements of long-range shooting, as well as a heavy emphasis on this PRS style of shooting, so covering positional shooting, stage breakdown, and other factors that are involved to get you ready to shoot your first match. Anyway, we pick up the discussion as we check out the next stage in proceedings. Andrew, do you want to take us through our next stage, which is stage 10, which is I Ain't No Dope?
What was it? This one. This one was quite tricky, I found. A lot of people did it easily. It was 3 targets. There was 300, 400 and 500 metres. And in 90 seconds, you had to engage the target, normally from the prone position. And then each time you had to drop the magazine. Getting confused now. You had to engage the targets from the near target to the far target with one round. And it was a hit to move, so you had to hit each one as you went out. Once you'd hit the 3 out to 500, you had to go and collect a second magazine. So drop magazine, run a short distance, get another magazine, and come back, and then re-engage the targets from your weak side shoulder.
There was one little caveat to the how we had to acquire our target on our dope, though.
That's right. We weren't allowed to actually dial any dope, so you had to hold for all 3 targets as well, which seemed to work fine on the normal shoulder, but I had never shot off the weak shoulder before. I'm pretty sure I looked ridiculous when I was trying. I just couldn't get a sight picture at all. It was very difficult, I thought, but a lot of guys seem to make it look so easy, to be honest.
So this is a PRS skills stage, which is PRS skills stage number 4, or an adaptation of it. And so these are 4 different stages that will, at least one of, appears in every PRS event, both in Australia and in the US. Now, it can be more than one, can be anywhere between 1 and 4, and these are utilised for a couple of reasons. One is they're the tiebreakers of the match, because we also record time. And they're also a bit of a benchmarking tool, so you can see how you performed at this event versus the previous one. Given that the stages and the locations and stuff were different, these stages are going to be the same. Have I got that right, Greg?
Yeah, that's about bang on. It literally is a benchmarking tool. Primarily, it is used as a tiebreaker, as you said, but it has the ability to be able to transfer across, and you'll be able to see how well you're doing over a large period of time, or also how well you're doing against another demographic, a shooter or whatever, because the stage will be shot the same. I mean, it might be called something different later, but the target size, the distance, and the actions will all be the same. That's exactly right.
And so this stage I really like because it does test support shoulder shooting,
This was
which I'm
actually my
going
favourite
to
stage.
get to in a moment, and also the fact of not being able to dial your distances or your elevation adjustments, so having to hold over, which for some people they don't practice that, they dial everything, so it really does test that and certainly gives the options of speeding up. Sean, have you shot much on the support side on what the weak shoulder?
Not a cracker.
Well,
Great. And how'd you go on this one?
I managed to get up to the support bench, but didn't. I timed out, so I never got to shoot that support side.
so you completed the strong side first, got you to magazine, got back, and then
Yeah.
timed.
And then timed, yeah.
Well, you got through without any sort of holding over, so that's a feat in itself.
Yeah, the
really.
holdovers were fine, but that also comes down to such a great scope I was using too.
Of course he was. He was using a
I was
Gen
doing
2.
the Vortex Gen 2 racer, But such clear optics, it was awesome.
What do you remember? What magnification you were running on that stage, or you can't remember?
Most of this sort of stuff, I started off on the higher mag. I think they go up to 27, but that's way too much, and you have trouble finding your target. So most of the stages, I actually dialed back to 15 and left it at that, and that was more than enough. At 600 metres, that's more than enough scope.
Yeah, that first focal Gen 2 is definitely worth an investment, I think.
Yeah.
I can't wait to put mine on now.
Yeah, you got one, you like bugger.
I'm waiting on rings.
So Andrew picked one up off the prize table, obviously thanks to
What
Vortex
an awesome
for sponsoring it.
What an awesome
Tell you
prize.
what, they've done well with sponsorship on that. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vortex.
Nick, how did you go on this stage? You scored all right.
Yeah, it's the one thing that's going in my favour that not many people know about. I'm actually ambidextrous, purely ambidextrous, and I'm left eye dominant. So
I thought you were amphibious because I was pretty certain you're a reptile.
I'm something, Greg. I'm something.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Don't put him in a box, Greg.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough. I shoot a NSX in second focal plane. I run it 22 mag non-stop. I don't ever dial out with my magnification. But I shoot two eyes open, so I can actually co-witness with my left eye and pick things up that way. And holding dope with a 260 rem, off the top of my head, it was about 0.9. Then it was like 2, and then like 2.9. So I just held 1, 2, and 3 mil. So it made it quite convenient for me to hold that. I was able to get out. I got the 3 shots fairly cleanly, the first 3. I did a mag change, got back again, hit the first, the 200 meter gong, or the 300 meter gong pretty cleanly. And then I had a brain fart. I went to the next gong, and I'm like, "Yep, no worries. I'm on this. I've got plenty of time." On the left shoulder, I'm going for it, and holy crap, that went low. What's going on there? Shooting, I'm like, is this the right gong I'm shooting at? Well, hang on a minute. And I was aiming dead center of the crosshairs. I didn't hold. I don't know what I did that for. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then I held, and then I timed out after that. So I didn't actually get to that last position. So I got the 5 out of the 6.
That's good.
So it wasn't too bad, but only because I think I missed like 3 times in a row. And I even looked up and looked behind the guys and said, can you see where that landed? And they're just like shaking their head like, ooh. So it was rather entertaining. I will make note that a few people were shooting weak shoulder, but strong hand when they were shooting, which I thought was quite an interesting technique. So that was interesting to note.
This is commonly the way I do it. Yeah, is weak shoulder but still strong hand.
Yeah, so that was quite an interesting technique. So yeah, I think that might be something I might try. But I mean, considering I do shotgun and pistol natively left-handed, depending on the stage, I'm just sort of going to roll with what I do now. So just shoot right, left as required.
Yeah, brilliant.
I was lucky with the dope on that one. Like my 300 meters happened to be 1 mil, my 400 meters happened to be 2 mil, and my 500 happened to be 3 mil.
Weren't shooting the same gun as Nick, were you?
Yeah, you were shooting my gun on that stage, were you? So, shooting the Nerf gun?
Yeah, that's the one.
What caliber were you shooting for that one?
That was 243.
Okay, yep.
And that was...
wow, okay. I was shooting the 260 with a 140 grainer, so they're very similar trajectory then.
Yeah, that's 87 grain VMAXs, but that's factory, the new OSA ammo.
Nice, okay.
That's brought out, and I think we were getting just over 3,000 feet per second out of the barrel.
Okay, yep.
And that's over 15 shots, we're only getting a variation of about 9.7, and that's for factory ammo. So it's a new ammo that they've just brought out, and it's really, really good. The Aussie-made stuff's just awesome.
Hey, Nick, what did you say you were running? 300, 400, 500? What was your dope?
I think it was, off the top of my head, it was 0.9 and about 2 and then 2.9, or right on that margin, I think, off the top of my head. So it was right next to it.
0.9.
In mil, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm comparing that to my 223, because my 223 would be 1.1, 1.8, and 2.8 for 3, 4, and 500 meters respectively.
Greg, you're not allowed to run 300 meters close to the target, mate. You have to shoot it from the firing position.
That's correct. You're right.
He's very fast, though.
He is fast.
He can use your ute, can't he, to go out there?
Yeah, I make the rules.
Oh, good.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Speaking of rules, let's move on to I like a do de cha-cha.
I like a do de cha-cha.
Which you definitely say better than I, and I did have some interesting cha-cha dances going on from some of the competitors. But
it wasn't me this time.
No, you're right. Yours was not interesting at all. This is one of the stages I RO'd on Sunday, and this again is a PRS skill stage. What they would do is a shooter's rifle would be in the starting position, and although we got the shooters stand back off the rifle, and then they'd drop down into the position, and they'd engage a target at 300 meters, which is a 200 mil target. And once they hit it, they could then move on to a target at 500 meters, which was... I think actually we ended up using the same size target for it.
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
And then they'd have to drop the mag out. And they had the option of either replacing the mag with a different one or dropping it out, touching the ground and back in. And then they'd re-engage those same targets but in reverse order. So the 500 metres and then the 200 metres. Again, hit to move. Now, if they'd completed all of that, they then have to transition to, we used a bench, but the same height as a box.
Concrete range bench, yeah.
Yep, and they'd go over there as a barricade, and they'd effectively do the same thing, but on slightly larger targets that were different to the previous ones. And so they'd shoot 300, 500, and then 500, 300.
No seat, just...
no seats. No.
Balancing any way you could.
Correct. So basically using it as a barricade. And it was this is, again, part of the tiebreakers of the stages. And... It was really good to see guys go. We had a lot of guys get to that 300 meter target and then just struggle with that 500. It was a tough target at 500, but the guys who got onto it, actually I had quite a few guys hit it once. So hit the 300, hit the 500, and then just turned to jelly. Just that mag change threw them off enough that they just could not get back onto target. And then obviously a few guys cleaned it. And kudos to Andy McNeil, actually, who absolutely smashed this stage. It was a 90-second stage, and he completed it in just over 60 seconds.
I think those Team Swamp Donkey guys are actually using those same magnetic projectiles in both their games, because they're both running a pair of AIs. So might have to declare shenanigans on that
Stainless steel targets.
Yeah, that or plastic, one or two. And I remember speaking to Ashley Porner the night before, and he was saying, Matt, I really hope this is a tight competition and comes down to like those guys who make the wrong, just tiny errors. And on this stage, poor Ashley has come to the last shot, which is a 300 metre over the barricade, last shot of it, worth 1.5 points. And he has grabbed a round out of his 2-round holder, and I've looked, and he's already got rounds in his magazine, and he's thrown it into the chamber, and I've gone, I know how this ends.
30 second delay.
No.
This is a jam coming up.
Yeah, so he's had now 2 rounds sitting there, and he's smashed the bolt forward and not been able to get it too far because he's got 2 rounds.
Poor defiance that he was running.
And I felt for him going, oh no, that's because he was on track to do a very decent time. It would have been a full, would have scored everything, full points.
Did he look at you with those puppy dog eyes like, what have I done?
I think he was trying to work out what he had done.
Yeah, what have I done to myself?
And I did let him know afterwards that he was, had he got that one shot off, he would have been 3 positions up from where he finished.
Oh, don't say that to him. That would have destroyed him.
I did let him know. And he was stoked because exactly what he was talking about the night before is of it being a very close competition, and you had to be right on your game to you could quite easily drop 1.5 points and drop a couple of places.
But his imaginary teammate for the day, Jamie, he actually clean swept at JD, from what I understand.
Yeah, he cleaned it as well. But I don't know, Lucas and Crispy came through, and they cleaned it about 76, 77, even with a broken leg. Yeah. And then
that wasn't broken, that was fake.
Bionic
man.
Scotty and Andy took great pleasure in wiping about 15, 16, 17 seconds off their times.
Wow.
And absolutely smashing it. So there was some really good shooting on that stage, and I've talked far too long. Guys, how did you enjoy that stage?
Yeah, I did well on that one. I think I got 12 points as well there. So
nice.
I remember it just sort of felt good. It's good when things just work your way, and every time I threw the gun up again, it was pointed straight at it. So I just kept going. Yeah.
That's right, Andrew. You finished with 0.11 seconds left.
Yeah, I know. The last round, it was a pull the trigger and hope, and it hit it. So.
Did you close your eyes and cross your fingers?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I think he did more than that, and he absolutely full points there. What about yourself, Sean?
I think I only scored a 6 for that, but I have a feeling I had a hang up. There's one of and I think it was that one. I had a hang up, so I had to wait for 30 seconds.
They're evil, aren't they?
But what it was my first shot, because you got to put your magazine in, and my bolt was a little bit forward, and then I put the magazine in.
I remember seeing that. That's right.
And then put the bolt forward, and I didn't chamber, pulled the trigger, and I was like, and we just looked at each other and go, oh no.
So you still managed to actually get some shots away after that problem?
Yeah.
So he still had 60 seconds remaining.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I scored a 6.
That's good.
And that was after a 30-second wait for the hang-up. Now, is that 30-second wait after either a failure to fire or whatever? Is that like a range rule?
Yeah.
Where does that 30 seconds come from?
Yeah, it's a SSAA requirement that anytime there's a potential hang fire, and now look at that, like not picking up a round or it actually being a hang fire to an RO looks exactly the same.
Yeah, so you can't tell from the outside of the gun. So
yeah, so that 30-second delay is a safety precaution. And so we had to we actually had to sit and think about a rule, going forward when we did encounter that, of how we could, make it fair. And so what we came up with is if it's a true hang fire, we'll allow them to reset the stage and reshoot. But if they had more than 2 hang fires, they'd be pulled off the line and we'd have to inspect their ammo to see if it's safe, etc., or the gun. But if it wasn't a hang fire, if it was, like a failure to pick up a round, or, you've just closed the bolt, empty chamber and pulled the trigger, that would be on you. So essentially that 30 seconds, the clock would still be running. And if you still had time after that 30 seconds, you could continue to shoot. But if that 30 seconds run you out of time, well, that's too bad.
Because I know one person who had it twice on 2 different stages.
Yep.
I don't think it really cost them the entire. It's not like they were probably going to come first. They could have placed a lot better than what they did, but it certainly did cost people to some sort of detriment. So it was something to be very conscious and aware of, to be positive with your own firearms and equipment.
It's something I learned a lesson on. Make sure your bolt is right back before you slide it forward. And it's one of those things you don't know until you ever experience it. And so it was something I picked up over the weekend.
Last event, I broke my bolt stop on my Stiller action. I pulled the bolt back so hard I punched myself in the face with it. That was good.
That was probably just karma. I mean,
no, this is before you, Greg.
Oh right,
couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, normally you'd ask someone else to sort of inflict that kind of karma, but you just done everyone a favour and just gone ahead and given yourself an uppercut.
I have to say I've done the same thing with a Remington. Smack myself in the face. Yep. Good stuff. So brings us on to the next stage, which is a farmer's work is never done. Nick, do you want to take us through that?
Well, this was good because we kind of had a little bit of time, so we could actually shoot as many times as we wanted, which is always a fantastic thing. So we had 90 seconds. So this was basically the best way to describe it was we had it says on the book it was a rabbit at 15 meters. It wasn't actually a rabbit. I believe we ended up putting a goat.
Pig.
Or ram? Pig, sorry, my mistake. Yeah. And it ended up being about 10 or 12 meters or thereabouts.
That pig was heavy, by the way, too. I dropped that on my damn toe, but carry on.
Karma, Greg, karma.
Yeah.
And we also had a fox at 284 meters, a full-size standard silhouetted fox. And it was basically, we had to start with our mag in, the bolt back and all the usual stuff that goes with it. And we had to get a shotgun with a single round and shoot the pig, hit or miss, didn't really matter. Then go over to our we had a hay bale to actually rest on.
There you go.
We weren't allowed to use a bipod, were we? We just had to.
No, you're allowed to use a bipod.
Okay, sorry, but we had to mount the firearm on the actual hay bale itself. Yeah. So shooting across the hay bale.
Yeah.
And then shoot at a fox target, and we had was it 1 or 2 shots?
It was one shot on the. It was hit to move on the fox.
That's right. Yeah, hit to move. So for me, it would have been 2 to 3 shots. So hit to move.
That's because you weren't using a bipod.
Maybe. Oh, you know what? If I didn't have the box on my back, it probably would have been all right.
Yeah, it would have been.
So because correct me if I'm wrong, it was actually in the exact same position the next day, if I'm not mistaken.
What?
So that was the stage. It was run from exactly the same location. That stage.
Yes.
No,
it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it was run from the next baffle up.
Oh, the next baffle up. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah.
So that wasn't too bad. I saw some. I have to give props to a certain lovely gentleman that we shot with.
You're welcome.
I said gentleman.
Sorry, I misheard you.
He was in our group. He was actually a customer of mine. I won't mention his name, but he was so confident with that shotgun. He loaded it up, shot from the hip, and went back, and he never missed a shot. I just couldn't believe this guy just put it in and blat. And the range officer just sort of looked at him. He's like, well, you're not being unsafe because you're hitting the target. You know what you're doing? He's like, I've been shooting shotguns for 35 years or something to that effect. So, he did rather well that stage. Personally, I could have done a bit better. But for what it was, I enjoyed the stage because, again, it was breaking it up and using a different firearm. A lot of, I don't know how many of you other guys had sort of gone at, shooting at night, shooting foxes or rabbits and chasing them down and getting an occasional hare. But shotguns are almost like a staple diet for sort of shooting on the back of it. So I was quite familiar with using a shotgun. So it wasn't a problem for me at all, like loading and unloading it. But shooting that fox across the hay bale, I don't know why. It did give me a little tiny bit of an issue, though.
Right.
I'm not really sure why. I think it was just the height of it. Me kneeling, sitting, it just didn't.
I know, the problem was you weren't in a box. That was the issue.
Yeah. So maybe if I had the box there, it would have, I could have just locked myself in.
More boxes, Greg. More boxes.
More boxes for next time, please, sir.
More boxes.
I found, and quite a few shooters in our sort of group, found that hay bale was really, really stable to shoot off.
Yeah, it was. I was still running that little Magpul front stubby nub thing though, so I think I was rolling or rocking on that. I think
I'm pretty sure that's how they market it as well.
Yeah, the stubby nub.
Thanks to our sponsors, Magpul, for their stubby nub.
Yeah, so I think that was much to my sort of my own fault for not removing that beforehand to get a decent purchase on the. But live and learn. I know for next time.
Yeah, this was the closest thing to what I've been normally doing, shooting hares and foxes and shooting shotties and stuff like that. And Andrew did really well on this one as well. I think we both aced it.
Yeah, it felt good when I did it. I just made sure that I had the bipod legs fully pulled out because watching the guys before me, they were sinking into the hay bale and it just wasn't a good position with the magazine sticking down in the middle.
Probably better than a Magpul stubby nub butt, right?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Oh, you can't really go past that Magpul stubby knob though. It's it's served me well for this long.
You guys have seen the P spin as well, the new P spin from Magpul? No, I'll let you guys look at that. Anyway, we'll move on.
I was actually trying to find a photo. I've got a photo of that gong afterwards, and it had about a 1 foot trench right in front of it that spanned for about 3 feet long as everybody hit it. And this, so I'll have to find the photo later.
There was not a shred of paint left on that gong.
It was absolutely
You'd even knocked
left.
all the paint off the back of it as well somehow.
And they also cut the top of the star picket that it was resting against as well. So that was good as well.
It was a bit of a tricky shoddy to fire because it was a double trigger and auto safety. So
There's
that
auto
put a few
safety
people
caught
out too, you know. Some of the guys that are used to shooting shotguns, it's like, oh, you know, which triggers which barrel and the auto safety, it's just sort of caught a few
level playing field, mate. Playing field.
How did you guys figure out the barrels? Like, did you do any technique?
I just pulled both triggers at the same time from the head.
That's exactly what I did. 2 fingers in, let's go.
Load it in, bang, safety up, bang, bang, gone.
That's the way to go.
No trouble.
Good move.
The blanket.